true. Nervous, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? Disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things, in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How, then, am I mad? Hearken! And observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived it haunted me day and night. Hodgik there was none. I'd once conceived it haunted me day and night. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye, with a film over. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. So by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. Seen how wisely I proceeded. With what caution. With what foresight. With what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before. I killed him. And how have you passed the night? Every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously, him by name in a hearty tone. Every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously. You see, he would have been a very profound old man, indeed, to suspect. To him, calling him by name in a hearty tone. Every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man, indeed, to suspect. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it so gently. When I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in lantern, all closed, that no light shone out, and then I thrust. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in, moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old in my head and sleep. An hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Would a madman have been so wise as this? I undid the lantern cautiously, oh, so cautiously. Would a madman have been so wise as this? And now much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. This I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight, but I found the eye always closed. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. Upon the 8th night I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. His minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers of capacity. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me. For he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. You may think that I drew back, but no. The room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were. You may think that I drew back, but no. It was fastened, through fear of robbers, and so I knew, sharpening, that he could not see. Opening of the door, and I kept pushing it on steadily, steadily. Who's there? I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I kept quite still and said nothing. "Who's there?" Hear him lie down. Sitting up in the bed listening just as I have done, night after night, and he did not hear me lying down, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal.
Not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh no, it was the terror. Low stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe.
I knew what the old man felt and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew the sound well. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney, only a mouse crossing the floor, or it is merely a cricket which—" He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney."
Yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions,
But he had found
all in vain. In approaching him had stalked with his black shadow before him, and enveloped.
When I had waited a long time very patiently, without hearing him lie down, or resolved out to open a very, very little cress him in the lantern. It was open, wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. It was open, wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. It chilled the very marrow in my bones. See nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I
Who's there?
directed the ray as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but overgrowth? And have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but openness of the sense? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull acuteness of the sense. Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained and kept still. In time the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. Quicker and quicker, and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. Grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? And now at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that very old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. For some minutes longer I refrained and stood still. The beating grew louder, louder. I thought the heart must burst. Now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. I then smiled gaily, but for many minutes the heart beat on with a muffled sound. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more.
If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. Took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all in the scantlings. Placed the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even, could have detected anything wrong. Nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. His hair could have detected anything wrong. Been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. Ha! There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever.
A shriek was heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play. We are to search the premises. We are to search the premises.
Gentlemen, the shriek was my own in a dream. The old man is absent in the country. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. Rest from your fatigues. Search well, I insist. Rest from your...
The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. Ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But still they sat. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely, rid of the feeling. But it continued and gained definiteness until, at length, that the noise was not within my ears. I found that the noise was not within my ears.
As I say, the house is quiet, always quiet. Why would they not be gone? Oh God, what could I do? Oh God, why would they not be gone? God, what could I do? I swung the chair upon which I'd been sitting and grated it upon the... I foamed, I raved, I swore. But the noise arose overall and continually increased. Louder, 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 and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. But the noise possible they heard not. Almighty God, no, no. They suspected, they knew, they were making a mockery of my horror. This, was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, no! Thought, and this I think. But anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. Bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now a hark! Louder! Louder! Villains! Dismember no more! I abnet the deed! Tear up the planks! Here! Here! It is the beating of his hideous heart! Of his hideous heart! True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad?